Hello there. I know it's been a while, but welcome back to a new video. After the Pahalgam attacks, one of the first things that the Indian government did was to suspend the Indus Water Treaty, something Pakistan has termed as an act of war. And in response, they have threatened to suspend the Shimla Agreement. Hailed as one of the most successful water treaties to have ever signed between two countries, Indus Water Treaty ensures peaceful sharing of the water available in the Indus River system between both the countries. But there have certainly been a lot of issues in how the both countries are sharing the water in the Indus River system. And you would already know how lopsided and unfair this treaty has been to India. So were we really losing out on one of our most valuable resources because of the Indus Water Treaty? If so, is this a strategic move from the Indian government to suspend it right now? Who will it benefit? And also, why did we sign such an unfair treaty that is so against our favor in 1960? That is what we will look at in this video. So tune in and watch till the end. And also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. The Indus River system consists of the mighty Indus River and its 5 major tributaries, which are Ravi, Satluj, Beas, Chenab and Jhelum. The Indus River basin has sustained human civilizations for more than 7,000 years that we know of, and it has done that as one unified entity, starting all the way from the Himalayas flowing into Punjab and Sindh and until it ends in the Arabian Sea. During the colonial period, British built or recovered large labyrinths of canals and irrigation systems for agriculture and transport. The irrigation system in the Indus Basin is one of the largest irrigation systems in the world, which is now completely in Pakistan. And that brings us to the partition, the disastrous splitting of two major land masses, one Bengal and Punjab, two major regions which had a shared history, shared culture and tradition, similar kinds of cultivation and even language, were divided just on the basis of religion and nothing else. And the geography of the land was never taken into account when it was divided. So, how did partition divide the Indus Basin? The catchment area of the Indus River, that is where all the water collects before flowing downwards, and the origin points of the major tributaries are all in India, while all the irrigation facilities and the barrages and dams and the canals were all in Pakistan, which required water from India to flow into them. So India, being the upper riparian, seemed to have an upper hand in controlling the water in the Indus River basin. That is, they could control almost all the water that reached Pakistan and even block the flow of water if India wanted to. And that is exactly what the Punjab government did in 1948 as part of the conflict. The government closed 2 major canals, shutting off almost all water going into Pakistan, which was resumed after 5 weeks. A long 2 years of negotiations and interim agreements followed, with no permanent solution in sight. It was almost like a second partition where an entire river basin was divided between two countries, and we were at a brink of war on the basis of water. In 1951, David Lilienthal, former chairman of Tennessee Valley Authority and the US Atomic Energy Commission, got involved in this conflict, and he suggested the involvement of World Bank in finding a resolution to this conflict and this water crisis. And Lilienthal suggested that if India and Pakistan can sit together and come to a resolution on how to divide the water in the Indus River system, they can eventually get together and solve more serious problems, more severe critical problems, including Kashmir. Eugene R. Black, the president of World Bank, agreed to this, and a working party was made up of Indian, Pakistani and World Bank engineers. And they thought of getting to a technical engineering solution. But it was easier said than done, obviously, because both the countries could never come to an agreement on how to share the water. Pakistan wanted everything to be back the way it was before the partition, where they did not have to share the water, and that was just not acceptable to India. In 1954, the World Bank abandons its consultative, standoffish way of handling this conflict, and they come up with a proposal that they forced upon the two countries. Of course, India was willing to accept, but not Pakistan. And 6 more years of negotiations and stalemates and conflict happened. And in September 1960, the Indus Water Treaty was signed by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and the then Pakistan President Ayub Khan, brokered by the World Bank. Like I said, it is one of the most generous water treaties ever signed, where it compels the upper riparian state to defer to the interest of the downstream state. The treaty gives Pakistan full control of 3 western rivers in the Indus River system: Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. They flow from Jammu and Kashmir and into Pakistan. India in turn gets control of the other 3 rivers, which are Ravi, Baz and Satluj. They flow from Punjab. Pakistan gets 80% of the water of the Indus River system, while India only gets 20%. But India can use the water in the western rivers for irrigation up to 7,00,000 acres, with new storage capacity not exceeding 1.54 million cubic meters. And new storage works with hydropower plants, with storage not exceeding 2.0 million cubic meters. All this water that is flowing into Pakistan without ever being utilized by India is going into the Arabian Sea unutilized once again. And that is 40 million acre feet of water flowing into the sea without ever being utilized for any human needs. And this disparity is despite the fact that 69% of the catchment area of Indus River and its tributaries are all in India. That is, all this water as a result of precipitation is collected in India and they flow downstream into Pakistan. Yet we are not allowed to use any of that water that literally originates from our lands. Now, if you look at the economic aspect of the treaty, that is once again very disadvantageous and unfair towards India. India contributed £62.06 million, that is around $4 billion today, towards replacement works in Pakistan to facilitate the water distribution from western rivers. The water that is coming from the western rivers now needs to be stored and utilized by Pakistan, so that needed more canals and more irrigation facilities. So India contributed to building that. And also Pakistan got grants and not loans of about 400 crore. India would get 27 crore of the overall requirement of 100 crores to build infrastructure. And for us, it was given as loans and not grants. All in all, as Prime Minister Nehru put it in his statement in Parliament, we purchased a settlement, if you like. We purchased peace to that extent, and it is good for both countries. But the future progress of building infrastructure, irrigation and hydropower facilities were never peaceful as the leaders, or at least as Prime Minister, would have thought it would be. Pakistan continued to raise concerns over almost all the infrastructure or any development that India planned to have in these 3 western rivers. Projects like the Salal hydroelectric projects, the Tulbul navigation projects were all blocked and objected by Pakistan by saying that we were taking their water when we had the right, according to the Indus Water Treaty, to build non-consumptive facilities in the western rivers. So that conflict just continued. So now we get to the question, then why was such a treaty really signed? It was all done in the name of ensuring peace and harmony between these newly partitioned countries. As Lilienthal suggested and as World Bank thought, Prime Minister Nehru also believed that if we signed this treaty, that would give way to more harmony and more resolutions on major issues like Kashmir. So he wanted to extend an olive leaf, which here is a whole river system, so that Pakistan would consider more peaceful and harmonious attitude towards India. But that never happened, obviously. Under the Indus Water Treaty, India only had irrigation facilities to irrigate 19% of our cultivable land, while for Pakistan it was 54%. So if India could use more water, the water crunch in states of Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan would not be there. And the state that is most affected by the Indus Water Treaty is Jammu and Kashmir, because all the three western rivers originate and flow through Jammu and Kashmir, but they cannot use that water for almost anything. The people of Jammu and Kashmir and consecutive governments have raised this issue and called for abrogation of the Indus Water Treaty, saying how unfair it is and how anti-developmental it is to the land of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, it wouldn't be wrong to suggest that Pakistan needs a Kashmir that is underdeveloped and with really poor economy and scarce food security. That would be better to instigate all kinds of protest and violence that they do. So by the abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty, the state that is going to be most benefited is Jammu and Kashmir, because they can now use the water of the western rivers for hydropower, for irrigation and for everything else. So now it's your turn. What do you think about the Indus Water Treaty? Can you believe that a foreign entity could keep a cap on the water in Indian rivers like this? Please let me know in the comment section, and obviously don't forget to subscribe. More videos are coming, and until we meet next time, bye bye, have an awesome time.